Hi, welcome to another episode of Webcam Sessions. This week we're going to be talking a little bit more about some fretting habits, which we actually covered in an earlier episode. I believe it was the first, second, or third episode we did of this series. But we're going to be looking at a very specific example to work on essentially thumbs out or thumbs in with the fretting hand. So to start here, let's talk just a little bit about fretting an ukulele. A lot of times when people are learning, they're taught that their thumb should always be squared back behind the neck. If they do anything else, they're wrong. And I don't think that's true. I think that there's a lot of different ways to actually hold up the neck. And some of the rules that go with guitar playing that people oftentimes try to apply to the ukulele aren't necessarily correct for the ukulele. And the biggest thing I find with this is where the thumb goes behind the instrument. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll say, hey, your thumb needs to be right along the back at about a 45-degree angle, and when you're playing the instrument, you need to be holding up chords with the pressure of the thumb and the fingertips. And a lot of times people will find that they're dropping the ukulele because of this, because it's really difficult to hold and balance it and make switches between chords. And what I find works really well is some chords, you need to allow the instrument to drop into that first knuckle joint on your hand, right in here where the ball of your index finger is, to be able to essentially support the ukulele and have the neck still upright. So to look at a couple examples, we're going to start with just a G chord. And we're going to learn how to play a G chord with both of these sort of techniques. So let's do a G chord how most people think the right way first. So what we'll do is we'll take our thumb on our playing hand, we'll put it on a 45-degree angle facing out towards the headstock. And then we're going to take our index finger, place on the second fret of the C string, ring finger place on the third fret of the E string, and middle finger here on the second fret of the A. Again, making sure you're getting right up against the frets to make sure that the tone is maximized, much cleaner when you're not so far back, but right up to those frets. And now that thumb, again, we're tilting out at that angle, and we've got our G chord. It's okay if you find that your thumb wants to go the other direction and that turns the whole hand a little bit. That's okay, as long as the thumb is pushing and pinching up against the neck and propping up the chord, you're good. So that's a normal way of playing a G chord, right? Well, now let's learn the other way with the thumb up instead of the thumb down. What we're going to do is take off the hand, and then we're going to take that first knuckle joint right here on the finger, and we're going to set the edge of the under part of the fretboard, right in this sort of area, right on that little ball of the knuckle, right? Now with your thumb, instead of trying to put it behind, what you're actually going to do is you're going to put it a little bit on top. So you see that it's more cupping the ukulele and less holding it and more just giving something to sort of grip onto, because the part that's actually supporting the instrument is going to be right there at that knuckle joint at the hand. And then what you'll do is you'll cross the index finger over to the second fret of the C string, ring finger over the third fret of the E string, and middle here on the second fret of the A. And so this is playing with the thumb up, right? And you can see that it looks like I'm making a thumbs up, but I can still play a G chord this way. Now, you might find that that second way is way more difficult, or you might find that the first way is way more difficult. It's one of the fascinating things about people learning the instrument. I've had students that struggle with both ways, depending on their background and just what it is that's more comfortable immediately to them. But the reason we're working on kind of both of these methods is because which version of the G chord we pick for our thumb position is sort of determined by what the chords are that we're playing after or before it. And for a little bit of an example here, we're going to practice going from a G chord to a D7 chord, and we're also going to practice going from a G chord to an A minor 7 chord. And we can really see how each one of these techniques can really apply to the G chord depending where we're coming from. So let's go ahead and start with a G to the A minor 7. So how do we play an A minor 7? Well, it's probably the first chord you've ever played on the instrument. It's all open. Pretty cool, right? An all open chord. Well, if we fret the G chord with our thumb behind like this, right, in that sort of pinching motion, and we go from the G chord to all open, it's really tough to hold up the ukulele without putting any fingers on the fretboard to prop it up, because now this thumb has nothing to pinch up against, right? Normally when we're playing a chord and we have the thumb squared back, it's pinching these two together to create the friction needed to prop up the instrument. But as soon as we look at it from the standpoint of this A minor 7, where there's nothing to prop up, the instrument wants to fall. And that's where that second form, the thumb being up, really comes into play. By having the instrument sort of rest on that knuckle instead, playing all open is very easy. Making sure that as I do this, I'm not cupping over and muting that A string, but leaving it open. It's much easier to play. Now, if I were to try playing a G to an A minor 7, and I were to do my G with the thumb like this, and now were to do my A minor 7 by taking it all off like this, I'm making extra steps that I don't necessarily need to be making, right? And so what I would try to do from this point is play the G chord with that thumb up instead, right? By playing it with the thumb up, it's as simple as removing and placing back the fingers. You notice that the position of the thumb doesn't change between this G chord and this A minor 7, which I think is really cool. So in the event we're playing a chord like that, it makes more sense for our thumb to be more up. However, let's say that we were playing a D7 chord instead, right? A D7 chord is going to be played by taking your index finger, barring it all the way across the second fret. Again, getting right up to the fret. Sometimes it can help to roll the finger so that the nail's going towards the headstock, and then inch it a little bit closer to get right across that fret wire, maximize your sort of connection there. And then placing the middle finger on the third fret of the A string. All right, so that's a D7 chord, which is a bar chord, can be a little tricky. But if I were to try to play this chord with my thumb up here, like what we were just talking about, I actually can't get the break angle with these fingers because I need the fingers to be more straight. If you look at the index finger when the thumb's up like this, I can't get it all the way across comfortably. And so what I need to do is bring the thumb down, elongating the finger and making it easier to fret and get that whole connection. You can see, especially down here, how important it is compared to if I'm playing like this, right? So in this particular case, a D7 chord is going to want the thumb to be squared back, right? Which means if I'm going from this D7 to the G, back and forth, instead of doing the G like this, and then doing the D7 like this, and going back to the G like this, makes a lot more sense for my finger to essentially be kept in position. So now if I'm going from my D7 to my G, you can see how I'm propping it all up. The knuckle joint is not holding it up because these particular chords benefit it, right? Now if I were going to go to this G to the A minor 7 again, I'll switch my sort of format. And sometimes I'll switch in preparation for it. So let's say that I'm going to go to the G again, and then the D7. You'll notice I put my thumb behind prior to the D7 to kind of set it up, right? What this is trying to say is that we want to make sure that we're always setting ourselves up for whatever comes next. And so sometimes that means we change what we're currently playing or the technique that's used to make the next technique a little bit easier to utilize, right? So thumbs up, thumbs down, both are really good, both are really important, and there are countless examples of playing that use the thumb in different positions. To show it from more of a, some of the things I play example, if I were playing something more jazzy, I'd really have the thumb behind for most of these bar chords that are going to need the ukulele kind of propped up, right? Now, you notice until I got to the very end here with a lot of open strings, I was keeping that thumb squared behind the ukulele. Pretty cool, right? But if I were playing something that's more kind of instrumental in its feel, and what I mean by that is more like ukulele instrumental, not so much traditional jazz. One of the original songs I've written called Crossing Hemispheres, which if you want to check out, there's actually a link in the description below. I'm going to keep my thumb up like this almost the whole time. And the reason is because as I'm doing these motions, I'm keeping a lot of open strings. I'm taking the fingers off pretty consistently. So by having that thumb behind, I can hold up the instrument as I'm moving up despite not having any frets fretted sometimes, right? So kind of cool. So let me know in the comments which way you're more comfortable with. Do you usually have your thumb more up or your thumb more down? And I want to know just what the true statistics are. So please do leave a comment below. If you like this video, be sure to share it and give us a like. It helps drive traffic and everything else, all that good stuff. So have a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys next week on another episode of Webcam Sessions.